The 16 miles of the Bedford Railway begin with a junction on the Euston to Glasgow main line at Bletchley to the town of Bedford. Although nowadays it is on the main line from the Midlands to St Pancras, in the year of 1846 Bedford had no other railway, nor was there any in the district. The terminus at the end of the line came to be known eventually as Bedford St John's. In 1862, the line was extended from Bedford to Cambridge. That section lasted until closure in 1968, when St John's became a terminus once again. Opening in 1857, the Midland Railway's main line ran across the Bedford line on the level, but this was altered to run above the branch on a viaduct in 1868. Between both towns are the small intermediate stations. Closely spaced, they give a good indication of why the branch has so successfully survived threatened closure over the years. It still provides a much needed public service. Bletchley Station, 46 miles from London and 66 miles from Birmingham. Not a very large station when the line was opened in 1838, but throughout the 19th and 20th century it became a considerable junction and operational centre. In the 1990s it has, one has to admit, been overshadowed by the new station just north of here at Milton Keynes. Nevertheless, there is no lessening in the intensity of rail traffic that still uses its lines. The station is associated historically with the age of the steam locomotive. Nowadays, of course, diesels and electrics dominate, and there is not a whiff of steam any longer. As an electric multiple unit leaves south of Bletchley for Euston, under the concrete flyover opened in 1962, it passes also, on the right, the power signal box. This signal box replaced all the mechanical lever frame signalling at Bletchley and many other boxes for 22 miles, from Ashton, just north of Castlethorpe, to Tring Cutting, a few miles south of Cheddington Station. In there, the long panel and glowing lights control the trains in the electric age at Bletchley. Integral to the development of Bletchley were a number of branch lines built going east and west. The first in 1846 to Bedford, then the lines to the west to Banbury in 1850 and Oxford in 1851. Cambridge was reached in 1862. Most of these branch lines have gone now, with the exception of the first to Bedford, and that still runs from this platform. The building on this platform survives from the 1880s, with hints of classical styling with its round-top doorway. This was once the entrance to a subway connecting all the platforms. Eventually, it was replaced by a footbridge, and that in itself has now gone, replaced by a modern footbridge. But above the former can still be seen, on a stone lintel, in black lettering, the former platform numbering of the 1880s, platform 5. The platform now is platform 8. The station master's house remains somewhat uneasily in this electric age. It is like a small leafed villa defensively enclosed from the entrance road. The site of the steam shed that once held the shadowy bulk of steam Goliaths in patient rows is now completely razed, and in the familiar turn of things is reduced to a car park. In the background, one can almost detect an attitude of contempt as modern engines gaze down to an area formerly occupied by their ancestors. The train leaves for Bedford with a good complement of passengers. It swings across the points at the far end of the platform to turn on a tight curve to the right to leave the intercity route. Passing alongside parked diesels, 31s, 47s, 08s, onto what must be one of the oldest complete working branch lines in the country. Passing on through the canal-associated station of Fenny Stratford, leafy Aspley Guys, Woburn Sands, the station for the famous Woburn Abbey, and on through the brickfields of Bedfordshire, Stuartby and Kempston, to reach Bedford St John's and Bedford Midland.
Transport with the railway in its turn rivaled was the canal. The Grand Union Canal was crossed at Fenny Stratford or near Fenny Stratford Station, the first station after leaving Bletchley. Fenny Stratford, the wharves along the canal side, none of which exist now, rivaled the railway and Bletchley in importance in the canal age. But with the advent of the railway, all the produce that passed along these wharves, the pottery from the Midlands, coal, etc., passed over to the railway at Bletchley. Fenny Stratford became merely a canal backwater, now a source for the leisure industry. Fenny Stratford.
An attractive feature of the line is the architecture of its stations that is finely represented at Fenny Stratford. The striking appearance of the half-timbered style is repeated at Woburn Sands, Ridgemont and Millbrook. Though faded now, it still retains that distinction that is special to the line. But how fine the buildings must have looked newly presented in 1846. In 1909, a number of wayside halts were opened between Bletchley and Bedford for steam rail motor operation. The railway companies at the beginning of the century became aware of the expanding commuter populations, that people living in the country needed stations between the existing ones. 7 of these unstaffed halts were built, the first in the sequence at Brickhill, at the crossing. Up until 1982, a crossing keeper used to open and shut the gates by hand. Now they are controlled from Fenny Stratford signal box and observed by TV surveillance cameras. The staggered platforms at Brickhill allowed the gates to be replaced and the road reopened, whilst the train is still in the station. At Woburn Sands, the building style repeated again. Woburn, of course, being associated with the nearby Woburn Abbey. Some of the railway crossed the lands of the Duke of Bedford, and it was he that insisted on this lodge-style architecture. The nearby station hotel recalls those early days in the painting of its inn sign. The line still retains semaphore signals, and in the original London or North Western Railway signal box, the mechanical lever frame signalling. Unlike all the technology of a modern crossing, Astley guys could not be more basic, control by hand. At one time, cars arriving would have to summon the crossing keeper from his house by pushing this bell. It is probably the most attractively enclosed of all the stations. So much so that one could easily imagine a branch line steam engine calling with its liveried coaches instead of the brusque, snorting diesel multiple unit. Once again, the crossing keeper replaces the gates of a well-used road by hand. This must be a tedious routine, especially in this auto-electric age.
So the diesel multiple unit continues on to Bedford St John's and to Bedford Midland.
Before we reach Bedford, there are still a number of stations to go through, and the significant feature at Ridgemont is the proximity of the M1 motorway. This was opened in November 1959 and crossed the line on this bulky concrete bridge. With neat emphasis, the trains continue effortlessly beneath what is apparently a road traffic jam above them as our train appears and enters Ridgemont Station. signalman closes the gates and returns to his instruments inside the station building, with the mechanical lever frame outside it. These frames were once common at wayside stations that did not justify the larger installation of a signal box. They are, characteristically, from the days of steam and are fast disappearing from the system. Tight budgets and cost-cutting have delayed British Rail's planned replacement of them with a modern signalling system. After Ridgemont, the train takes the steepest part of the line, alongside Brogborough Hill. It was originally planned to build a tunnel beneath the hill when the line was built, but expenses excluded this for a hefty gradient of 1 in 129 from Bedford of nearly 3 miles. In October 1929, 35 heavily loaded brick wagons broke away at Ridgemont and ran back to Millbrook, colliding with a goods train in the station. This resulted in the death of its fireman.
Through the trees and to the next stop at the Linton station in the distance. Surprisingly, a class 31 in the opposite direction. The crossing keeper had to open the gates again.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Gates opening at Linton station. Now, the signal frame. Patient motorists roll back over the crossing as the DMU leaves again to continue on to Stewartby, Kempston, Hardwick, and of course Bedford. Train now leaving Lidlington makes its journey stealthily towards Marston Crossing. See the grey there of the crossing house. Marston Crossing, associated at one time with Marston Valley Brickworks, which stood alongside, which has now been demolished. Very little remains. The train now approaching the crossing. You see the crossing keeper's house. Stealthily over the crossing and moving on beyond the trees to the next station along the line at Millbrook. In the distance, beyond Millbrook station, huge on the horizon, are the great hangars that once held the airships of the 1930s. The R101, the R100, still dominating the horizon at Cardington.
At the next station of Millbrook, another of the familiar Class 31s arrives with 2 vans. Here, it is possible to see the original platform surfacing of stations on the line, as this station has never been rebuilt. This is made evident by the use of wooden steps for boarding the trains that are standing on the hard Staffordshire blue paviers of the platform.
Not a passenger, but a freight duty. Another new train on the coach, but didn't look very new in the scratches and bumps and bangs and knocks it obviously had.
Stewart Bay is a halt, like the others, but unlike the others, surrounded by the considerable brick-making complex of the London Brick Company. Probably less so now, but from the time of its use as a halt for the nearby village of Wootton Pilling, it has known the busy feet of workmen arriving and departing from the plant. The line cuts right through the centre of the brickworks. There is another crossing inside the plant. On the other side is Forders sidings and signal box. The audible warning that wails out to warn traffic is on the road crossing at Wootton Broadmead that also had a halt that closed in 1949. In the high brick-producing era of the 20s and 30s, over 3.5 million bricks per week left these sidings in long trains hauled by the London and North Western Railway, steam engines, and later under the LMS and the British Railways. Although brick trains did continue into the diesel era of the 70s, it was under increasing competition from road usage, and the declining use of such sidings paralleled the end of the steam age. The London Brick Company established a separate company called Easy Dispose in 1974 to reverse the working order of so many years of taking clay from the pits and filling them with London's household rubbish. In 1974, a 20-year contract was signed with London County Council. This established the landfill trains, as they came to be called. 2 each day from Hendon, container trains of 1,000 tons of rubbish to shunt down these sidings to the pits. Eventually, when full, the old brick pits would be grassed over and landscaped into the adjoining countryside. Hauling these trains, besides 47s, and 56s, they have been handled by pairs of Class 25s. With the withdrawal of these, the duty appears to have fallen on the shoulders of Class 31s. Nevertheless, as is clearly evident, it still keeps the railway busy and well and truly occupied.
After the busy site of Wootton Broadney, there are two more halts, or at least there were two more halts, before Bedford itself. The first of these is at Kempston Hardwick, also in the shadow of a nearby brickworks. The crossing here was converted over from a controlled manned crossing to an automatic one with colour lights and audible warnings in 1985. Kempston Elstow closed in 1949 and situated in the narrow angle between the Bedford line and the Midland Main Line above it, exists now only as a private house.
This connection to the Midland Station started in 1846 as a short branch from Bedford St John's to the River Ouse and the commercial prospects of the Ouse navigation, possibly a reason why the station goodshed was sited midway along it. With the building of the Midland Station in 1857, the line was extended to connect with it. rebuilt in the late 70s, the Midland station had the local service to St Pancras electrified in 1983. Nowadays, branch lines tend to be associated with the great age of railways past. Many of them disappeared under the Beeching Plan of 1963. Even this line has been embattled against closure on several occasions, but continues to operate its service between Bedford and Bletchley. The line to Cambridge wasn't so fortunate. That was removed in the late 60s. The original Bedford St John's, along with it, has now become overgrown, as it was replaced by a halt on the line to the Midland station in the summer of 1984. However, with its 15 trains each way daily, as it had in the earlier years of its life, the line continues to prosper, hopefully into the 1990s.